Hello everyone, welcome to Series 2 of the GBA Lightbulb Sessions. The Great British Entrepreneur Awards, in association with BT Skills for Tomorrow, have designed a free live stream series of Lightbulb Sessions to support small businesses and entrepreneurs with insightful and advice-driven sessions, featuring some of the UK's brilliant entrepreneurial minds to illuminate your path to entrepreneurial success. You can find out more about BT Skills for Tomorrow by heading to their website at www.bt.com/skills for tomorrow or by clicking on the link in the comment section. In today's session, Great British Entrepreneur Awards Head of Content Jonathan Davis will speak with Mention Me's Director of Operations Simon Dring and Director of Client Abby Went. In this session, Simon and Abby will be looking at what customer-led growth is and how to make the most of it. They'll discuss the theory, consumer psychology, and how to apply the thinking in order to fuel growth from happy customers. There is an opportunity to ask questions during this session. If you have a question you'd like to ask, you can pop this in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, and we'll do our best to answer these throughout the session. There will be a few polls throughout the session. Please note that all answers will be anonymous. And with that, I'll pass over to our host today, Jonathan Davis.
Yeah, thanks, Chloe. Abby and Simon, thank you for taking the time to join us today and go through everything that we're going to discuss today. Simon, I'll start with you. If you could just tell us a bit more about Mention Me and what you guys do.
Yes, hello. Thanks for having us here this morning. Mention Me is, at essence, a referral marketing and customer advocacy and retention platform. And so what we're about doing is helping our clients, of whom we have around 400 today, nurture their customers through their experience of interacting with the brand or the product or the service, and with the goal of driving them to become advocates on behalf of that brand, and to come back and buy again or buy more and so forth. And we work with a huge array of clients in the B2C space, all online businesses primarily, but in sectors as varied and diverse as finance and insurance, food, fashion, travel, although that's gone a bit quiet over the last year or so, and even utilities. And we, over the 7 or so years that we've been running, we take great pride in the fact we have delivered about 4 million different types of customer actions, be they referrals or secondary purchases or sign-ups, and driven well over $1 billion in revenue for our client base of around 400 clients. The way we work is we have both the technology platform that we've talked to, and then alongside that, Abby, and she'll talk about some of this in due course, Abby and her team work with each of our clients to help them build tailored programs that best engage their specific customer segments and go for the goals that that business wants to set in place, be that growth at all costs, or be that driving repeat rate or high lifetime value or advocacy, whatever it is, we can help set up a platform that will drive those outcomes. Excellent.
So a pretty brilliant introduction to Mention Me there. So Abby, Simon mentioned there about delivering, what was it, 4 million interactions and over $1 billion of value. But let's go a bit further into kind of the value of referral marketing. You know, as a business owner, what are you likely to get out of it?
So I think I want to start with the kind of challenges I think marketers are facing at the moment, because there's a few things that I think Referral solves for around these sorts of challenges. So one is that it's increasingly difficult to reach the audience that really matters to your brand. And from a consumer perspective, certainly from my own, we get inundated with so many different messages all the time across lots of different channels, and often they're completely irrelevant. Obviously, we've made some progress in serving kind of more relevant content through using kind of targeted or segmented advertising through social media channels, which I happen to also get a lot of. And I think I'm terrified of my phone now because I'm pretty certain it's listening to me at all times. I'm constantly getting advertised for brands that I've spoken about and discussed with those around me, but actually haven't researched at all. And so it's really difficult for brands to kind of cut through the noise of all of these different messages that we're getting all the time. A second key challenge is that there's a real lack of trust in the mainstream advertising. So Nielsen did a report about a year ago or a couple of years ago, and suggested trust in marketing had fallen quite significantly over the past 5 years. So referral being the tool that allows you to conquer both of those challenges. It gives you, the brand, the opportunity to serve relevant content from a trustworthy source, aka your friends of the customer. What we really mean by this is that when a friend shares a brand with you, they're acting as the best possible filter for relevance. So you're not being spammed by lots of different messages all the time, but instead you're getting something that's really relevant to you and your circumstance, whatever that may be. Your friend knows you, and whether you'll appreciate being introduced to the brand or not. And they're also only ever going to share brands that with you that they trust. So they're not going to risk their reputation on a brand that maybe they've had terrible customer experience service with, or they're unreliable or poor quality brands. So I think referral really is the tool that allows you to serve, like build trust with your customers, and then also serve relevant content and acquire customers through that source.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the kind of diminishing trust in marketing. Why do you think that has kind of occurred over the last 5 years?
I think in part it's because we've information overload, I like to call it. I think we are in a society where we have so much at our fingertips right now, where we can research lots of different brands all at one time. And so that's the kind of, it's hard to avoid when we hear like bad press about a brand or something like that. It's hard to kind of avoid that content. So now when we have all of these different messages coming to us, it's kind of breaking through it, I guess, a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And Simon, it's probably fair to say that referral marketing hasn't had, sort of the same amount of airtime as other marketing channels over the past, 5-10 years. Do you think that now businesses are starting to kind of wake up to its value and really give a focus to it?
I think, as Abby says, there's an element of necessity to an increasing exploration of these kinds of channels. So the Nielsen annual trust survey demonstrates the sort of declining levels of trust and relevance that people perceive in the more traditional forms of advertising that drive online acquisition nowadays. So whether that's Facebook display campaigns or billboard or PR, people are finding them decreasingly relevant and decreasingly trustworthy, and starting to place more emphasis on the information that they were always getting anyway, but the review sites. So what do people who are peers of mine think about these products, and their friends and the people that they interact with on a day-to-day basis. And so that be playing out in the sense that those other channels are becoming decreasingly effective or increasingly expensive to achieve the same outcome. And so one of the dynamics that we're seeing is businesses are looking to maintain growth rates or to grow their businesses, and having to look slightly wider than the affiliate, PPC, whatever kind of standard list of channels that they might want to look at. I think there have been some big poster children for referral over the last 10 years. Like, no one really talks about the growth of Airbnb or Uber or even Dropbox before those. They're always cited as Refer a Friend was a massive engine for their growth. I think one of the other things, and we'll take some credit here, there's an increasing maturity in the ability and ease with which it's possible to run a referral campaign. One dynamic that we have seen quite often, and the first poll that you put up on screen is a kind of interesting point of entry into that, is that we sometimes encounter clients who think they've tried referral and it didn't work, and so we don't want to come back to it. One of the things that our contention is around this, and like people take away from it, referral can be a valuable channel, and sending an email out once and not getting much of a response on it is not a good proof point as to whether it can or cannot be a valuable outcome. The other dimension that's worth thinking about in terms of the value of referral, which is another dynamic that I see increasingly with businesses, is and obviously people have been talking about aggregating customer data and getting a clear and consistent view about who their customers are and the value that those customers bring, so that they can apply segmentation models and start to roll in loyalty schemes. One of the things that referral is starting to be able to contribute to that, and it's a strategic push for us as a business, and it certainly aligns with what we're seeing many of our clients do, is referral gives you more information about where the value sits in your customer base. We know who's advocating for you. We're tracking it. We're saying which 10% of your customer base is out there actively speaking on your behalf. And further, we can track the value that they're delivering for you as a business. And we can say, actually, with this cohort of customers, not only are they loyal and they're spending this much over this time with you, but the people they've been able to engage and bring in have delivered additional revenue for you as well. So this trend that we're seeing of better quality data aggregated across the various touch points that a company might own with those customers, and referral adding into that to support better segmentation and value driving activity is another thing that plays quite nicely with the work that we've been doing over the last few months.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, did you want to add?
Sorry, yeah, I was going to say, like, it's been really interesting over the past, well, Simon talked about the past 10 years, but it's kind of more recent than that, like the kind of influencer phenomenon, which pulls on the whole like referral aspect of marketing. Yes, it's not a set referral program, but it's using individuals to build that trust. And that has been so huge. I had one friend set up a brand last year that is completely relied on kind of using influencers to get the word out there about their specific brand. So there's been an absolute change in dynamic of how we're kind of acquiring new customers and the sources that we look to. And even the influencer world, I think, is probably becoming a little bit saturated now on the kind of voices that we have. So leaning on your friends seems like the best source to get referrals from or get information from.
Yeah, and that kind of rise of influencers, obviously you mentioned there that it's not strictly a set in stone referral program, but has that rise kind of helped the referral marketing space as a whole, or kind of damaged it? What do you think? There's
a weird grey area that we think about with this context, and actually different of our clients work in different ways towards this. And the grey area is at one end of the spectrum, you have what you would consider to be a pure refer a friend referral, that I've gone and spoke to my neighbour directly about this product that I like, and they've purchased as a result of it. The other end of the spectrum, you have an affiliate program where there is no personal connection between the point of promotion and the people there. They might be independent parties from the actual brand itself, but there's no personal connection necessary. In the middle, you have influencers who are being paid, but there is some degree of personal connection between influencer and follower. And Refer a Friend some can be used, and in fact, the Mention Me platform itself is often used in various of those spaces to help clients set up like micro influencers, is the language that was in vogue a couple of years ago, and engage those people that like what the brand stands for and have something of a following. I mean, not massive necessarily, but are keen to promote and get some kind of recompense for it. But they're not the Kardashians of the world. They're not just one person referring one other. And so how Refer a Friend plays into that, it was actually, there's options about how you can choose to approach it, and whether you consider that what you want is a pure friend-to-friend referral program, or whether you want to open up your advocacy to include micro-influencers, or even go as far as the affiliate style work. There's no rules in this. Any of those will work as long as they fit the business objectives that you're trying to get to.
Yeah, so it certainly sounds like an almost blurring of lines across that spectrum, as you said. Abby, something that Simon mentioned was about kind of monitoring, your brand advocates and realizing that yes, they spend X amount of money with us, but they're also bringing in X amount by referring their friends. But how does this avenue of marketing help to create those brand advocates and repeat customers?
Yeah. So I think we've already kind of talked about referral building trust and relevance and getting the recommendations out there, which is kind of key in the overall brand loyalty and advocacy piece. When we've looked at our data across all of our different customers in many different verticals, as Simon mentioned before as well, we typically see that these new referred customers come to site, spend more, and often order more often than non-referred customers or new customers acquired from other marketing channels. And it's because referral at its core is asking your existing customer and existing loyal customer base to build the trust and provide relevant recommendations to your friends and family, so that when they come to site and arrive on site, a lot of the work has already been done for you as a brand. They're already kind of opted in. And I think a while ago, I worked for a personalization company before this, and we used to always talk about like, what's the entry product? What's the product that someone comes to your site that they're more likely to buy versus anything else? And I think when it comes to referral, because you're using this kind of network outside of your website and within your existing customer base, there's less like need for this kind of entry product of like, how do we get them to come to the site, buy this product, and then purchase the rest of our product range? So like a lot of that's already been done for you. And not only does it attract, so that's kind of on the attraction piece and kind of building some brand advocacy, but it's not only doing that, it's also getting those new customers to site. When they've made a purchase, it's then rewarding those existing loyal customer base. So in effect, we're getting them to come back and purchase again, which really means that everyone's winning in this, right? Like we're getting a new customer to site who feels good because they get a reward for placing a purchase. We've rewarded your existing loyal customer for doing all the hard work for you as a brand, and you're winning because you've got a new customer and you're rewarding that loyal behavior. So, I mean, it's a pretty good cycle to have, but we do see beyond that then, so all of that nice little journey that I've laid out, is that we see those people who come through the referral scheme often then refer more themselves. So then you have these new customers who then become an existing customer who then refer their friends. And you've got this really great self-fulfilling cycle of kind of encouraging repeat rates and encouraging people to come back to your site again and again, which I guess is kind of the key value point for referral.
And I'll add to that a couple of points. One is, I think it's worth making a distinction between all businesses will be benefiting from some extent to natural, organic word of mouth. That will be happening, and you will know from the conversations you have with your friends about the things you like, whether you were asked to refer or not by that brand. But what we're really talking about is the value that a prompted referral program can bring here, and that if you take the step of going out and asking your customers to advocate on your behalf, then you will get significant upside from doing so over and above the organic rate that you'll see. The benefit Abby talks around is sort of virtuous circle. Some of it's built on Cialdini's famous sort of 7 levers of influencing people. One of them is around consistency, and so one of the nice side benefits of running a prompted referral program is if you ask someone to make a referral on your behalf and they do so, then they will go away thinking they like you even more than they did before you asked them, because they retrospectively justify the action on the basis that they must like it. They are consistent in the way that they start to think about it, and so you start to see that benefit play out in the form of higher rates of repeat purchases, for example, in online businesses for customers that have engaged with the referral program, whether or not they were successful, that they're still more likely to come back and buy more. And there's a bit of a self-selection thing going on there as well, but there's a lot of positive virtuous circles going on.
Yeah, it's a really interesting area. Looking back at the last, 11 months now coming up, lockdown has obviously stopped consumers going to shops and kind of seeing products for themselves. And obviously that's kind of driven a huge rise in online shopping over that time. Have you seen that shift to online has kind of made the concept of recommendations and referrals even more important to shoppers than they were before? And does that make referral marketing kind of more and more important to brands as we go into the future and online shopping becomes more part of our everyday lives?
That's kind of the $1 million question as we cross our fingers and hope for the end of lockdown, right? I think what we we're not quite certain what the answer is here. So what we know we saw, as lockdown hit, and was a massive shift for many sectors, obviously not for all, towards online commerce. So we saw for some of the clients we work with who are pure play or mixed omnichannel retailers, significant shift of online volume, certainly in the first phase of lockdown. What we observed happening alongside that was that the growth rate in referrals, so if online volume moved up by 50-60%, which is sort of what we were talking about over that period, then referrals would be up 70-80%. So the growth in referrals was wider than the growth in transaction, or bigger than the growth in transaction volume that was caused in that first lockdown. And I think that's because by necessity, there was this huge cohort of people that started to shop online either at all for the first time, or at least in that category for the first time. And so they have been looking for recommendations from their peer network about where to go. And so certainly the as we all, that crazy time close on a year ago when everybody was not really sure what was going on and everybody's looking for their friends for support, I think we saw recommendations and referrals play a big role in the step up. What we've observed since in the subsequent lockdowns into this lockdown is, yep, online volumes are up, but the referral volume is now not ahead of the general overall growth. And so I think what we're not seeing at the moment is that the cohort of customers that have activated and gone online over the course of the last year are behaving significantly differently to the way they were before. So much as I'd like to make the case that referral marketing should be more important to brands as a result of the pandemic, I don't think I can justifiably do so, but it still should be an essential component of your armory for acquisition and retention.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really interesting time as we break out of lockdowns. I don't know, people are thinking about the kind of working environment and how we're going to go back to offices and what the office space is going to look like. But what's the retail space going to look like? Like, how are we going to interact with brands on the high street? Because I can't believe we're 11 months into this now. It still feels pretty crazy. But in that period, we've had time where we've been able to go out to the shops. And I don't know about everyone on this, but I found it a truly horrible experience wearing a mask, not able to try on clothes, like all of the joy of shopping in a store is gone. So how a brand's going to redesign their kind of store flows, I guess, and kind of how we interact with the store, and then how can we make the digital experience so much better so we can kind of mimic some of the in-store joy that we get when we go. It's going to be interesting. I'm still waiting for it to happen, and I guess we'll see. We're still defining what it looks like as an office space, but we'll see what happens on the high street.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just on that point there, I was sat on a roundtable last week, and which was around e-commerce and the high street, and someone mentioned there that physical in-store shopping is very much an experience. It's something that people go to do to enjoy, whereas e-commerce is more of an activity in it, and it is about trying to get that experience into the activity of online shopping. So it'd certainly be interesting to see how brands adapt to that in the future and post lockdown, whenever that is. Simon, I'd be really interested here. Something you touched on briefly earlier about customer behaviors. So I'd be really interested to hear about the psychology of customer behavior and why they recommend certain products, why they recommend certain brands. Are there certain types of brands that perform better than others in referral marketing? Okay.
So I think I've only got 36 minutes left to answer this question. So there's plenty of material on this topic. There's lots of great research that's published by people that aren't trying to sell you refer a friend software that I'd recommend reading. A book that we use a lot internally is a book called Contagious by an American academic called Jonah Berger, who looked into and did several years worth of research on what made people more likely to recommend one thing over another. Like, what were the common factors that things that were highly recommended have in common? And it's genuinely quite a good book. It's quite readable, very straightforward, very nicely laid out, and we use it a lot in the way we think about advising clients, and we advise our clients to read it as well. The short version of the summary is that people are more likely to make a recommendation about something if it reflects positively on them to do so. So if I can help you out by giving you some kind of special offer or making you aware of something that you perhaps wouldn't have been aware of, then I'm more likely to do so. If I'm prompted to make a referral or recommendation because it's a thing that comes up in conversation quite a lot, then that's more likely to lead to some sort of recommendation. If I feel good about it, actually, but I'm paraphrasing slightly, Berger's research was that people were more likely to make negative recommendations, and they were more likely to do so when they were angry about it. But that's not a great message to be building your brand around. And so if you can make your customers feel good and have positive, happy experiences in their engagement with your service or your product, then they're much more likely to recommend it. And if they have the ability to tell some kind of story around it, rather than simply send over a link or a promo code, some narrative that's meaningful and important to their life and the stories they want to tell. So those four factors are things that make something more likely to be subject to recommendation. the way that tends to play out in who the winners and losers in the referral space, or who will have an extremely high performing referral program versus one where it will wash its face and tick along, is that within the same sector, in the same category, we'll see that referral performs particularly well for some brands when compared with others. And so the obvious candidates here are challenger brands in a space will often have a higher performing referral program than incumbents in that space, because I can already, as a general consumer, I can already assume that you've heard of the incumbent, and so there is probably nothing interesting or beneficial to me in terms of our relationship if I tell you about it. But if a hot new challenger brand comes along and offers something that's different or a little bit unusual, then I'm much more likely to be telling you about it. And that's certainly the case where the thing the challenger brand offers taps into a particular set of values that people strongly feel. So an obvious example here is we work with a meal subscription company called All Plants, and they do vegan. So it's all recyclable stuff and it's all vegan, and they're very, very strong alignment with people's values around sustainable and eco-friendly eating and consumption. And we would expect and see that referral scheme performs better than others in the category that don't have such a clear distinction about what makes their brand special.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So I guess the kind of really mainstream example would be someone saying, "Hey, have you tried Coke?" Yeah. Everyone's done it. Everyone knows it. You don't necessarily need to make that recommendation.
No, the example I always use is John Lewis. Like, I would never recommend John Lewis to a friend because I'd assume we'd all heard of it and that you knew what you could get there. But there might be a scope for a referral program for John Lewis that focuses on a niche product or a new offering that they're making that is not particularly widely known. It might be flowers or the wedding gift registry or something, but there is space there. But as a brand concept and as a product, I'm not going to tell you about it. I'm not, and we wouldn't expect to see a high performing referral program around John Lewis as a wide brand.
Yeah, and Abby, what about products? As Simon said there, within a brand, are there certain types of products that do better than others?
If there is, we haven't found it yet. I think we work with so many different clients with lots of different products, from clothing to energy providers, which definitely isn't as sexy, to sex toys, literally. And we've turned referral into a really meaningful channel for each of them. But having said that, I guess the key kind of products that work well with referral, or typically work well, are the ones that are obvious or there's going to be a conversation around. So fashion is kind of quite clear in that it's like today I've worn a bright orange jumper, which is quite out there, I think, but it's something that's eye-catching, and people will ask me about it in the moment in the street, or maybe not, because maybe they don't love it, but it generates a conversation around the jumper that I'm wearing, versus potentially like financial services is probably not something that I'm going to sit at a dinner party when I'm allowed to actually have a dinner party, but there's kind of more work required in understanding at which points we should be using the referral program for those. So where we have those kind of key products, like whether it's a bike or something like that, where you're part of a cycling club and you'll be talking about the different gear that you have all the time, there's kind of obvious need for word of mouth, and that works really well. And then these other less, I guess, where we can have less of a conversation around is kind of financial services and those things. And it's really about choosing the points in your customer journey and understanding your customer journey to understand at which points we can start to talk about referral. Does it make sense? Like if you've recently taken out a mortgage and maybe you're of a certain age group where you're likely to be taking out mortgages as first-time buyers, could we be targeting that specific group with messages to share with their friends, because we know that they're going to, in all likelihood, over the next 5 years, we'll see kind of an increase in mortgages within that social circle. But it's thinking about those kind of moments, and there's a little bit more work and thought required around it to get referral working for them. But I guess the long and short of it is it kind of works for every product. It just depends how much thought you have to put into it, of which are the points that you need to talk about talk about the product and how you can refer it.
Yeah, I think you'll probably have a few more requests about where you got your orange jumper than where I got my my plain black t-shirt.
I thought I'd call it out, but anyway.
So in terms of, we've talked about the kind of the concept of referral marketing. Let's kind of touch on the actual practicalities of it. Where do you start if you want to start a referral marketing program? How long does it take to plan and build a really great program? Abby, I'll come to you on that one.
So with Mention Me, it can be super quick. Shameless plug there, but it can be super quick to actually set up the program and get it running. Our clients that we work with, on average, it's about 6 weeks. I will say that it can be a lot quicker than that. We have had one client who's gone live in 8 hours, which is an all-time record, and pretty proud of that. So it can be really quick to get set up in kind of the technical form and getting it up and running. I guess there's a thought process that needs to go into it and like planning out how this is actually going to work. So to get started, it would be first thinking about your customers and what they like about your product. What is the thing that makes them want to come to your site and purchase those products? It might not necessarily be what the brand identity says it is, but you certainly need to be very clear on like what it is about the brand and the product that gets people drawn in. And then it's thinking, Simon mentioned, we actually had a fellow fan of Contagious on the chat. I just saw it go off, which is great. But it's really thinking about the psychology of referral and thinking about how you can help your customers look good in front of their friends. What can you really offer them that will make them crazy not to tell their friends about you? So thinking about the incentives that you can provide, whether it's a gift with purchase or something that sets it apart on your website. And then finally, it's really thinking about the area, like where we should be talking about referral on your website, and then kind of where are the touch points that you might have with your customers. So making that super frictionless journey as possible for your customers, and also to make sure that your existing customers are even aware that a referral program exists. Kind of be no point in having it if it's kind of locked away behind some accounts and those sorts of things. So really about kind of understanding at which points, we call them points of delight, and those kind of happy points that you can be promoting referral. And I think once you've got all of that together, that's kind of the basics. It's really to put together a plan to test and optimize the different incentives that might work, copy, creatives, share options. We know that share options sometimes differ between different countries. For example, WhatsApp isn't heavily used in the US, but it's obviously massive here. So just making sure that you've optimized your journey properly. And then we've got a team. I've got a lovely team of client managers who help kind of provide tailored success plans for every client to speed up the whole process and to use kind of the knowledge that we have across other industries and other verticals to really make sure that your program is set up.
And Simon mentioned earlier, some that will send one email out, it won't work, and kind of give up. How do you go about analysing performance and kind of assess what needs changing? Is there a rough timeline on how soon you should be looking at things before you make alterations, things like that?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the importance is every company is slightly different. So it's really important that you understand what you're trying to drive as a business, and the kind of it's assessing this channel the same as you assess your other channels or kind of in the wider mix, so that you know how you want to be optimizing your program and kind of the boundaries that you have for it. As we've kind of mentioned, referral really does generate more valuable customers, so they're more likely to convert and delivering higher lifetime value than customers from other channels. But the key metrics that we look at, we have a lovely dashboard we look at is share rate. So that's at the very top of the funnel, or the referral funnel as we call it. And this is the likelihood of your customers to share with their friends. If we're not getting that metric right, then kind of the lower end of the funnel and actually purchasing isn't really going to happen. So it's really like analysing that and kind of monitoring that over the early stages of launching a referral program, and then we can kind of get further down the funnel as we grow to a bit of a more mature program, I guess. We, as I kind of alluded to, we work with a lot of different clients, so we can benchmark your share rates across different verticals and those sorts of things. And typically we look for around 5 to 15% share rate, really depending on again, the product, the brand, the vertical, those sorts of things. In terms of timelines, you asked there, it's continuous and slow. It's definitely not a fire and forget program. It requires a lot of tuning, or a little bit of tuning all the time. So inevitably, a brand is going to have a marketing calendar full of great activities that they're launching on the rest of the site. And it's really important that the referral program is really aligned to that marketing calendar. So there's constant optimizations going on depending on what's happening on the website. And then goals can change, right? Like brands can change what they're actually trying to do and change kind of incentive strategies and those sorts of things. So it really is a case of optimizing. I think the key thing with referral, though, I talk about it as the domino effect. Like it's not a thing that you can just put out there and suddenly you get loads of interaction with it. It's really a case of like you put it out there, you need to kind of increase the exposure of it and let it work, because there's a bit of a journey that needs to happen for you to acquire new customers. So it takes time. Like you need to give it some time to kind of get ramped up and running. But it really is a case of kind of continually monitoring the share rate in particular, and as I said, other metrics as we grow to a more mature program, and committing to a program of testing and learning to see what really works and what doesn't work. One test for one client or one incentive for one client definitely isn't the same for another. So that A/B testing by cohort is super critical in this context, as you need to kind of leave offers running for a little while to gain results. So yeah, it's kind of lots of different metrics that we can be looking at. Share rate is key, but it is a case of leaving it up and running and kind of optimizing as we go along.
I think I'll build on what Abby's been saying. So one of the observations we have from running all the programs that we've run is that to get it to be a successful channel, that not all the programs we run have been successful. To get it to be successful requires a little bit of time and energy from someone in the team who has a bit of authority to tweak things and change things. We surveyed our clients a few years back, and the more successful ones were tending to spend about an hour a week, that order of magnitude. Not a huge amount of time, but it wasn't zero time. And so I think that's a critical success factor for that we can see in terms of wanting to go for it. Given the audience today, and I suspect many early stages of growth, what that might mean is that referral isn't quite right from day one, because actually you're going to get bigger bang for buck on the affiliate channels to start with. But as you grow, the opportunity to start to make some time up and you have sufficiently large customer base to make it worthwhile, referral can start to be really important. And if I might give two very specific tips for anyone who's considering running referral, one-off saleless emails don't work. They just don't really work. People mostly ignore them. The reason they don't really work is because someone receives it, but at the moment they receive it, they're probably not in the mood and they're probably not ready to talk to someone. So they'll at best file it and almost certainly forget it. And so it's unlikely to deliver much in the way of value. The single most effective promotion point for referral for all of our clients is immediately after the customer has purchased online. That moment of it's a positive moment in the customer experience. They've committed, they are psychologically committed to the brand, they put their hand in their pocket. That point there accounts for 50% or more of the referrals that our schemes deliver. And so if you want to start small, that's the place to promote referral.
Excellent advice. I'm just conscious of time, and we've had quite a few questions come through, so I will move on to those. The first one comes from Bella, who says that she's launching her business later this year. And she's asking if referral marketing and the Mention Me platform is suitable for brand new startups.
Well, I'm not going to say no, but the referral is by definition additive on your existing customer base. And so in the early stages, if you have a very small customer base, you will not get much in the way of immediate returns from your referral program. Having said that, the poster children for successful referral integration from pretty much the word dot, I've name checked already, they're Uber, Airbnb, Dropbox, and they worked out a way of integrating the referral offer into their core offering. In particular, and this is certainly true for Dropbox and Uber, tying the value offered through the referral program, credit for Uber specifically, into the value that you would get from using the service. And so it really supported the kind of repeat and retention effect associated with it. And so As a general rule of thumb, if it's an online e-com women's wear fashion retailer, probably not worth doing in year one. But if you've got something that's more special and unique, and you can tie usage into a referral offer in some way, and you think, you're looking down the Uber or the Dropbox lines, then yeah, from the word go.
Excellent. We've had another one from Siobhan. You mentioned earlier, Simon, the kind of spectrum of referrals and affiliates. Siobhan's asking, how can we make affiliate marketing referrals more personal and engaging?
Okay, and so I think that's about the grey area between, referral. If you're being really black and white about it, the referral is one friend talking to another, and brand marketing, display marketing is completely impersonal. And then you're in the grey area of the degree to which affiliates and influencers have a connection with the people that they're reading or following them in some form or another. I'm going to dodge the question slightly, but I'm going to provide an answer to a very slightly different question, which was one of the things that we've seen some of our clients use our platform for. I mean, don't need to use Mention Me to do this, but they've looked at users of their product and how they can identify and recruit a bunch of micro affiliates or micro influencers. I don't particularly like the term, but it's a nice way of thinking about it. And so a more concrete example is if you do leisure wear, a sports and athletic and leisure wear, and you might look at a hookup with yoga teachers, right? So yoga teachers across the country may have classes, maybe 30, 40, 200 people in total. Can you do something for those yoga teachers that allows them to do something nice for their classes, maybe make some money, maybe they don't really care, but allows you to tap into this probably underserved. They'd never think of themselves as an affiliate, they would never think of themselves as an influencer, but referral in the broadest sense offers you an opportunity to engage them and use them in some way to help you grow and acquire more customers.
Excellent. We've had another one that is actually anonymous. So they run a funeral directory business, and they have asked, how do we effectively increase our brand awareness when people don't want to know anything about our service until the point that they need us? Anyone want to take a question on funeral directories?
So, one of the things we didn't talk about earlier is the nature of the purchase cycle with respect to the influence that referral has on it. And so the influence of referral is easy to measure for short-term impulse, low-value purchases, because you can very directly draw a line between the marketing activity that was the referral and the purchase. With longer-term, more considered purchases, and so they might be thinking like holidays on sofas, and a funeral services are arguably right at the other end of that spectrum, then there is no direct line. It's not like if I start a refer a friend program for funeral services, then the context isn't a particularly good one to reach out and offer, but B, just because I have a customer does not make that customer likely to know someone today who requires that product, that service, in this case funeral services. And so I don't know how to tackle the challenge of referral for funeral services, but my observation in that space is, and I think this would be borne out from most people's personal experiences, that in that situation, and actually for any general high value, unusual one-off type purchases, you will seek the advice of friends and family as you move towards consuming that service in some form or other. And so a refer a friend program, in the way that we might normally think of it for an online business, is probably not appropriate. But focusing on delivering value for your customers will be the way that you will drive referrals, and it's probably a critical part of your business already.
Yeah, absolutely.
Satisfactory answer, but that's.
No, it's a difficult question, definitely. But yeah, well answered, I think. So we'll have one final one, and it's another anonymous one, but it's a nice one to end. What is the secret sauce for a successful referral program?
Well, I haven't answered this question, and Abby, do you want to think of one as well? The answer I'll give, I've just talked to, just be awesome to your customers. Like the rest of the tech and all the stuff that we've talked about is valuable and useful once you're committed to doing referral. But if you don't deliver a good service to your customers, then the referral scheme will never work. So make sure your customers are front and center of what you offer and deliver on the promises your brand is making. We have, and I tell the same story every time we raise this point, like Abby will be bored of hearing it, but I remember preparing for a review with a client of ours and reviewing the performance of the scheme over time, and it had simply gone off a cliff at some point a few weeks previously. I hadn't spotted it, and I couldn't see why. I looked at their website, it all looked fine. I looked at our technology integration, it all looked fine, but for some reason the performance had dropped off enormously. So I nervously picked up the phone to the marketing director and was starting to talk through how things are going, and he said, "Oh, I know what happened. We moved our logistics and warehousing supplier 6 weeks ago, and every single order, 90% of our orders have gone out incorrectly or late or with the wrong items in them or to the wrong address since then." And we could see that had a catastrophic impact almost overnight on the success of the referral program. So absolute secret sauce, just be awesome for your customers.
Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty solid answer. It really is. Like, you're delivering the best customer experience is key. We talk about, I mean, this is customer, the concept of this whole talk is on customer-led growth, and it really is putting your customer at the center of the decisions you make as a business and really understanding kind of how they get joy from your brand, and then using that as the kind of center for driving a successful referral program.
Well, that is absolutely fantastic. Abby, Simon, thank you so much for the past probably just over 45 minutes. It's been really, really interesting, really insightful, and some really brilliant advice in there. And I'm sure I speak for everyone who joined us today when I say that. But thank you again. And with that, I will pass back to Chloe.
Amazing.
Thank you, Jonathan. What an incredible session, and thank you, Abby and Simon, for joining us today and sharing your expertise and knowledge. Do you have any final words before we sign off?
Thank you very much for your time and attention today. I hope the advice that we've been able to provide proves useful for you in your future plans, and we would love to hear from you. Please reach out to either Abby or I on LinkedIn after this call if you'd like to talk in more detail about how Mention Me might be able to help your business.
Yeah, of course. It was really great to semi-meet some of you guys and see your questions coming through. Thank you for engaging. And of course, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. I'm happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you both. I have also included a link in the chat to the Mention Me site if you'd like to find out a little bit more about Mention Me and the work that they do. Our next Lightbulb session will be at the same time next week with Christopher Kenner as he discusses reaching diversity at a scale with authenticity. If there is anything you'd like to catch up on from today's session, we'll be sending out a replay of this recording later on today, and you can find the replay and future sessions at www.lightbulb-sessions.haysummit.com. Thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you again, Abby, Jonathan, and Simon. Goodbye, everybody.